Greetings, loyalists and heretics. Welcome to Iron and Ceramite, where we once again enter the warp without an astropath.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Iron and Ceramite's coverage of Warhammer Fest 2021. We're now up to day 6, or the Mystery Day, as was previously described by Games Workshop, very tactfully. They could have called it Age of Sigmar Day 2, like they did with Warhammer. They didn't, that's fine. But it was, as you can guess, what we're going to be talking about a lot is the reveals and the previews that happened today. They were very much focused around Age of Sigmar. And joining me today is Tommy. Hello, Tom.
Hello, guys.
And Glenn. Hello, Glenn.
Afternoon.
Now, of course, I haven't had a chance to, well, we haven't had Glenn on since, I think it was day 3, the Black Library, where, of course, we had Gaunt's Ghosts. How have you settled down now, Glenn? How's it feeling? Since
well, yeah, I did have to have a bit of a mad scramble to get on that one, because that was just, wanted to see something like that. Yeah, I've calmed down a little bit. Like some of the releases that have come out in the past couple of days sort of made me go, okay, there's other stuff to get excited about, not just 6 plastic models, you know.
I mean, they're pretty good though. They're pretty good.
They are, yeah. They're really nice models.
The book, though, I was going to say the book looks very good as well. It's something we'll come on to in a minute. It's one of the things that they talked about on the stream today was what's been your show stealer, what's been the one thing of the week. I'll ask the question: what one thing? If you could pick one thing to have, what would that one thing be? And I'm guessing for you it would be the Gaunt's models, but maybe I'm wrong. What would it be, Glenn?
The models probably won't be as difficult to get hold of as the limited edition book, so it would be the limited edition book, because trying to get into the queue for any limited edition Black Library stuff is so difficult. And no harm to Games Workshop, but I'm not paying 150, 200 quid to a scalper online because they haven't made enough of them. You know, yeah. You would think they would have learned, because, whilst there's the appeal of limited edition, but they'll easily sell more of them. It's not like they're going, oh, we're only going to make 1,000, we're going to number them, and it'll be this, just double the production. You'll sell them.
Very, very true, very true. But it did look like a very nice limited edition. It's got a pack and everything, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, that I like all the little extra bits you get. I've got a few of the limited edition things over the years, like the messenger bag and the Cadian bag and things like that. So yeah, it'll fit in nicely with all of my Aston Harm stuff.
Very nice, very nice. What about yourself, Tom? What would be the one thing that you would want to take away if you could?
I think definitely the Orcs for me. I think if I'd read more of the Gaunt's Ghosts novels, then maybe that one would have taken it. But I think just aesthetically, the Orcs looked really good to me. It's something that I would collect if I had the money, really, and I wasn't already collecting an army. I think they would be the next in line for me, for sure.
Yeah, there were some very nice models in that range, and very orky as well, which is
absolutely
something I quite like. It's interesting. I think for me, it was I'm kind of, to a degree, I'm with you, Glenn, in that limited edition book does look very nice with all those extras. But I did also really like the Aeronautica Imperialis launcher, the Eldari and the Space Marine ships. So,
and the little Thunderhawk.
Exactly. I love the way they did the release for that, for the video.
Yeah, but a bit of tongue in cheek. They really played that one up well.
That was very nice, very nice. Anyway, that's I mean, maybe that will be something for a future pod in our wrap up of the week. But today we're going to go through what was announced. So let me quickly share my screen so that we can talk through some of the stuff that was announced today. So hopefully you guys can see that. We're starting off with the artwork from that's going to be a part of the new rulebook for Age of Sigmar 3.0, or the next edition, however you want to call it. We'll come into the character that's depicted, but I started with this because I really like the artwork in this particular instance. I thought it was a very cool piece of artwork. I don't know that much of my lore of Age of Sigmar and stuff like that, but obviously that was the big piece. So what did you guys think about the launch of a new edition?
I'll let Glenn go first, because to be honest, I know next to nothing about Age of Sigmar, and I've got to be honest, it doesn't really excite me too much.
What do you think?
But yeah,
what do you think of the artwork, though? I know that you like.
I love
some
the
of your
artwork. I actually have to say, since you put that up first, I think that is probably the best single thing I've seen on the whole of the show earlier on. I think the models were okay. There was a couple of them that were very nice, but that artwork is blinding, isn't it? Look at that.
It is a very nice piece of work.
And I think that was going to be on the front of the rule book. Is that what they said? Or
Correct.
The new rule book?
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Glenn, what about yourself? What do you think about the announcement of the new box set edition of Age of Sigmar?
It's a difficult one to call because I've been around for a lot of re-releases of various editions of the game, both like as a hobbyist and as a member of staff. So on a personal level, I find it a little bit difficult to get overly excited because it's a new rule system. I want to see the rules. All right, it's fine to be like, yeah, we're going to do this, until I physically get a copy of a rule book and can look at it, dissect it, and think, yes, they've made it better. No, they've made it worse. I get a little bit apprehensive, but I've not played second edition Age of Sigmar. I only dabbled a little bit with the first one. Thought it was fine. It was different to old style fantasy. If they've kept progressing it, like they claim to have made it better and better over the years, that's fair enough. And new system means new models, new starter set, and generally speaking, new starter sets have just got better and better over the years. So there are going to be some fantastic looking models. I just would have liked them to not have Stormcast in it. But that's like saying a 40k starter set without Space Marines. It's just not going to happen. That's their go-to. So
it is very true. I was going to say, we'll come into the miniatures in a second, but I think that was my prevailing thought throughout the launch of this and what was revealed today is, I think, especially when it comes to the Age of Sigmar and the old world, I like the bad guys, as it were. So I like to see my undead, my vampires, that neck of the woods. And so it would be nice, although some of the chaos side of things has been touched upon in the imagery and the artwork here, for example. It would have been nice to have maybe seen some of the minis they launched today have it been from both sides of the aisle, as it were.
I think also I'd just like to touch on the fact that I think maybe they should have possibly gone into a little bit more lore. I think because it's still relatively new in comparison to everything else, like 40k and all that. It would have been nice for them to perhaps, like you say, maybe put on a little bit of who's versus who. Essentially, I know it's always chaos against the good guys, which are the Eternals, but maybe touch on a few more of the other factions that are actually in the game already, just to draw some people in, because that's how I get hooked on stuff myself, by knowing a little bit about the lore first before I take up the game. So it would have been nice to hear a little bit more. There was a few bits they touched on, but just not enough for me, I think.
Yeah, well, Age of Sigmar's only been around for maybe 5 or 6 years, somewhere around that kind of mark. So I will say they have really smashed out the lore, and they progressed the story a lot over what is essentially just 2 editions. And they've got 8 different realms. Each realm is featured sort of more or less heavier, depending on the edition. And they've really gone into a lot of detail, compared to the 40k story, from 2nd edition up until we got the Indomitus stuff. It was pretty much a set timeline. Nothing happened, nothing changed. It was just this is the timeline, and we're at 5 minutes to midnight on the doomsday clock. Whereas this, they've changed a lot more, and they seem to be quite good at progressing the storyline. So it'd be interesting to see, like you say, you want more detail on it, but I know there is a lot of detail out there for it.
Mm.
If
I think,
you know,
yeah. I mean, I've actually bought about 20 books. I haven't read any of them yet, but there's a lot out there. I just think maybe it's hard to get into something when they've got a big platform like this. I think it would have been nice just to touch on a couple of little bits of detail where you could have gone, oh, that sounds interesting, actually. You know, because rather than having to force yourself into something, a book, and you're not really sure where to start and all that. I don't know. I would like to have heard them, speak a little bit more about the basic lore, maybe just 5 minutes of, where everything is and how it's set up, sort of thing, as in the world.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like I suppose. I mean, I kind of agree to an extent. If I wanted to find it, I could find it. There'll be loads of YouTubers about it. But even things like a one-line explainer as to who Sigmar actually is, for example, things like that. We know who the Emperor of Mankind is when you come to 40k, but it's because it's quite. Is Sigmar the same sort of character? I'm hypothetically, I know the stuff myself, but it is. Yeah, I think for someone entirely new to it, it can be sometimes a little bit daunting, kind of scratching that surface and seeing what it actually, how it's all put together from a lore perspective. But I agree that if anything, they've moved the lore on so fast in Age of Sigmar, up to the 3rd edition, especially when you compare it to 40k, that if they want it to last, if this is like a line that they want to continue for like the same sort of period of time and longevity as 40k, they're probably going to have to find a way to slow down, because otherwise they're going to burn through it faster. They're just going to burn through it really quick, right? Anyway,
I would imagine so.
Yeah. That being said, when we talked about the Stormcast Eternals and the new models, this is one of them on screen if you're viewing, and this is Indrasta, the Celestial Spear. She is part of the Stormcast Eternals. She's a monster hunter, apparently. Obviously, we saw her in the artwork just before, and she's one of the top tier Sigmar or heroes of Sigmar. And obviously, this model, as they hinted at it on the base, she's in like a swampy environment. What do you guys think? What do you think of this particular mini?
I like it, but not necessarily for Age of Sigmar. As soon as I seen it, I went,
Celestine.
Yep, Living Saint. That'll be a nice conversion. I'm sure we'll see many of them once that model hits the shelves.
There was a lot of chat about Celestine.
I saw that.
That was straight away what my thoughts were. I didn't look too much at the chat because, let's be honest, the chat on the side hasn't always been the most positive and interesting thing.
I kept just repeatedly. I talked about it in yesterday's. Or was it the box games? It might have been the box games edition when we reviewed that. Just people can't stop talking about Cursed City, and they need to leave it alone. It's done. Like they're not going to get any of the answers. But quite right. Sometimes the chat is a toxic place. But yeah, Celestine. I'm looking forward to see what people do with it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to say, I really like the model though itself. This one, I just don't like the face. I think it's all good to have. I mean, she looks like she's been punched in the face repeatedly. I'm sorry, I have to say, like the artwork, it's the actual artwork we saw of the character looks so much better. If they could have cast that face a little bit more, because the artwork there the face looks completely different. I'm assuming that you could probably change the head anyway or whatever, but just think on this model, everything else is really nice, and then the face just looks like she's got a potato face. It just doesn't go with the rest of the model. I'm sorry to say, in my opinion, anyway.
Sometimes it is the angle of the photography. Sometimes it's the thing of it. Because I've seen many models over the years that I've looked at as like a single shot of it, and you look at it and you go, not fussed. You get the model in your hand and go, actually, that's pretty good. You know, so if a model looks good, generally, if a model looks good in a picture, it is good. If it's not great in the picture, you might need to see it in the flesh, and then you'll appreciate it a little bit better, because it's not like Games Workshop produce bad models.
No, definitely not. I mean,
sometimes it's just the photography or the paint scheme. Even with like some of the best painters in the world painting the models for images like this, there's just sometimes that something's just a little bit off. And like I look at that and I don't see an issue with the face. I guess it's quite a nice looking model. and it's Games Workshop going, yeah, let's do more females. We can't do female Space Marines, but we'll put females into the Age of Sigmar Space Marine version of the army. So
yeah, the Sigmarines, as they've been dubbed. And speaking of Sigmarines, it leads us very nicely on to the new. This is so it's not a Sigmarine, of course. It's a Stormcast. This is the Stormcast Vindicator in Thunderstrike armor. With the lore around these guys being that obviously a Stormcast Eternal is kind of when they're slain in battle, they are reforged and come back again, but they come back, slightly less than they were before. And apparently that process is quite perilous. Some of the Eternals are getting lost in the journey to the heavens on the way back, but the Thunderstrike armor aids this in that they literally explode in a clap of thunder and a lightning strike, thrown into the heavens to then come back reforged. So that's the lore. That's what they're supposed to be. That's the Stormcast Vindicator sculpt. I think it comes down to whether or not you like your Stormcast. So I suspect I know what the answers might be here, but I'll throw open to you guys. What do you think?
Well, I actually have a small Stormcast army, and it was primarily got with the intention of stick some backpacks on that, give them a bolter. So yeah, I mean, like it's a fine model if that's going to be like their next sort of core unit. If that's a character, it's a bit meh. If it's just sort of like a rank and file guy, yeah, it looks nice. There's a nice bit of detail on it. I think I'm with Tom, the one that from the chat earlier. The head just doesn't look right. There's something about the head. It's like, I don't know if it's the scale or the fact there's nothing behind it. It's just, it looks a bit off. It's not as imposing as the rest of the model. But, like the detail on the shield and the actual armor and things, really nice model.
Yeah, I agree. I like the body.
Sorry, Tom, I want to quickly flick onto the next slide because I think this is something you mentioned as well. When they had the different paint schemes and head models, it gave a different viewpoint. So now, sorry for interrupting. I'll come back to you.
No, it's night and day, mate. Absolutely night and day. That the one on the top left, the one that's painted white with the human head on without the helmet on. I think that looks beautiful. I really like the look of that, and it's just amazing, isn't it? How just changing the stance of something, and then literally one piece of the armor, and then just a slight, recolor, and it can completely change the model for some people. Anyway, I mean, for me, that looks cool, proper cool, compared to what they've gone with, which is obviously what you'd expect anyway, the golden armor, Stormcast. But that is streets above the other model, I think.
It's got a very what's that film? 300 pose to it. And they talked about it as well, like the idea of having that phalanx of Stormcasts. It's there is something quite appealing in that. I really like, as I said, the bottom two here as color schemes. I thought that I don't know, maybe it's just something that's, I don't know, built in about the Stormcast standard coloring, but I really like the bottom two schemes as well. I just think they look quite different, and I don't know whether it solves the issues with the head size, but I think having the halos in a different color to the mask maybe gives it a bit more perspective. But I think I don't know. I think they potentially led with the wrong model in terms of the scheme, because when they then had these ones up, it, as you said, night and day. It made a real difference to how I thought they looked. Yeah,
even if they wanted to do the golden one first, why not the one on the top right? It's a much more dynamic model, and it just looks better with that little bit of plumage on the top of the helmet as well. Whereas that one that they picked, it was just like, it's not the. But as I just said, photography and paint scheme makes a huge difference to the model. You look at that one compared to the other one, it's like, actually, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
actually, it's funny you said that, because at the end of the show there was a picture of that same model, and it was on like a turntable or whatever it was, as they were sort of closing up. and I thought it looked a lot better in that, the way when you was turning around and you had a sort of a 360 or 180 of it, whatever it was. And yeah, it did look a little bit cooler, I have to say, like that.
Yeah. So it's, as I said, I think, I mean, what we're getting from a lot of it is actually, sometimes you need to see the model in your hands, and sometimes it's multiple differences. But as I said, I think they are in a whole. I think they're still pretty cool minis. So it's nice. I think it's going to be a nice thing for those that obviously collect Age of Sigmar and those that are into their Stormcast Eternals. I think it's a good release. I think obviously we're probably a bit more 40k bias at the moment, and not that we won't get there with the other games, but it does make it a bit harder to get to.
I think that's one of the things that I was going to mention. If we was all reading these books, Age of Sigmar books, the way we read 40k and the way you guys obviously do the Omnis and that with the 30k, I think we'd all be going, oh yeah, because could you imagine this character, that character, and you could get into it then, couldn't you? But at the moment, for me, they're just sort of minis with no background because, well, through my own fault of not reading the books. But yeah.
Yeah. And then we move on to one of the other new minis as well. So this is the Stormcast Annihilator with, I can't remember the name of it, but it's some sort of hammer.
It is the Meteoric Hammer.
That's it, Meteoric Hammer. Massive hammer. Something beginning with an M. With a nice little design that they talked about on the face of the hammer, ready to emboss it in the face of any passing Chaos Warrior. I thought this was a very cool mini. I thought it was very, very nice looking. As I said, talked about the lore and stuff like that. I can't help, whenever I look at the Stormcast Eternals and stuff like that, I would look at it and go, you could pick up a kit and kit bash it, as you've already said, Glenn, and I'm sure Tom, you've been thinking about Sanguinary Guards and stuff like that. Is that it's got the same aesthetic as some of the Blood Angels or 40k that you could easily kit bash into a nice little mini. But as a mini itself and the artwork that went alongside it, I thought this was quite a cool little release.
Yeah,
I like this one.
Yeah, really like that model. I like the lion on the chest plate and the shield, just all the extra little detail. It's really nice. My only issue is it's quite static looking.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because he's supposed to be stoic and a badass, and he's just standing there going, "Yeah, I'm hard." But it is a really nice model. But again, little plume on that helmet, would make it just that little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little bit of red as well, because there's not many colours there, is there? Other than that, that would really set it off.
Little complementary spot color somewhere would make it just sort of finish it off quite nicely.
Yeah. Apparently, the unit itself is supposed to be quite the tank, so I'm sure that'll be very, very useful for people on the playing tabletop. But as I said, it is a nice looking mini. If not, as I said, from our perspective of just judging it on that. But yeah, as I said, I think you're exactly spot on there, Glenn. It's quite static in terms of what it is.
Yeah.
Could be a bit more dynamic, perhaps. But
even if he was like sort of swinging that hammer, just something.
Indeed. And that was pretty much. Let me stop sharing there. That was pretty much the what was going on from our slideshow, from everything that was released. Obviously, there was a bit of a video at the end as well, but again, it was more of the same, more Age of Sigmar. So it was very much a Age of Sigmar preview and release day today. As I said, I think a group of very cool minis, some very nice artwork, some bits and pieces that will be, I'm sure, very interesting for those that are Stormcast Eternals players, and I suppose probably a good sign for what's coming up in the upcoming Age of Sigmar releases for the rest of the year. I think I think that's pretty much it for today, isn't it?
Well, we also had that little teaser video at the end as to what was going to be the enemy in the box. So I've
written one down. Go on, Glenn.
I was going to say, I've
written one down.
Yeah. What's the guesses?
Well, I think it's probably going to be some form of. I wasn't sure if it was going to be undead because it was quite kind of like sneaky vampire-y thing. But it's got to be an evil force, because there was also a little bit of me going, oh well, some kind of like wood elf type thing, because it mentioned forests and bogs and all that kind of stuff. It's like, but it's always a good army versus an evil army, so that's probably it.
I am leaning towards undead as well, because of what they said with Enestra, and it said sort of like her base, and they said, oh, it's swampy, and that always tends to be a bit of an inkling towards the undead, which also was what kind of led my comments earlier on. It would have been nice to have seen some of the bad guys. What about yourself, Tommy? You got any other ideas?
Yeah, undead as well. Well, I actually wrote down zombies because I'm an idiot. But then I also put underneath it Skaven, but I quickly crossed that out because I just thought the red eyes, you think, oh, Skaven straight away. But it's above ground and it's in the woods, so it almost certainly wouldn't be a version of them. So no. I think you guys are right.
There was a lot of Skaven chat going on. As I said, you could take that with a pinch of salt, but there was but there was definitely a lot of Skaven chat going on. But they were saying something to do with the pit of mouldering, I think it was, which I don't know whether that's probably some Skaven lore that I'm unfortunately entirely unaware of.
I think that's a clan pestilence kind of thing off the top of my head. It'd be nice to see Skaven, because previous box was it was the night haunt or night ghast or whatever, like the spectrally type stuff. And then the first box was the against chaos, so like the corneate stuff. So I would like to see something different from more undead, but if it's different undead, I don't want it to be just sort of like the same army but slightly different. I would like to see, and Skaven would be actually quite a good shout. But usually when Games Workshop do teaser videos and Skaven's involved, they always have the little squeaky voice and like the little rat voice.
The snickety snick.
Yeah.
I said I've always soft spot for Skaven. I don't know why, but it would be nice to see them. So we'll have to see how that pans out.
And also, I think in our next pod, when we start it, I think Glenn's going to have to introduce it in the Skaven voice that he just did. Yeah, that was
a one and done situation right there. That's been retired.
Very short-lived debut and retirement of Glenn's Skaven voice. You've heard it here. All right, fair enough. Well, thank you for joining me, guys. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap it up for day 6, Age of Sigmar day 2?
Not really. I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea, Age of Sigmar, but I think it's good that they've gone through everything and they haven't just at the end gone Warhammer 40k again. Then you've got 3 days of them, haven't you? I think at least a Games Workshop, they're trying to cater for everyone, and I think essentially that's going to be a good thing. I mean, I've got a little bit from this. I've sort of thought to myself, maybe I should read a couple of the books. So who knows? I might get into it because they put this up. So yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Glenn, any last thoughts?
Not really. I don't know if I was excited or disappointed, because it could have been so much stuff from the animated stuff, online computer games, licenses that they've done to other things as well. I don't want to be like the people in the comment section going, oh, it's not this, it's not that. I think me and you, Shane, we've been around for long enough to know, just because you're not getting something doesn't mean you won't get something.
Yeah,
it will come round. I think it's just learning to be patient with it. And this release was sort of, it's good. It's not something I'm doing at the minute, so my excitement for it wasn't as high as it could have been if it was something else. But equally, I'd quite like to see some more stuff for armies I collect, or different game systems that I'm more actively involved in, like a bit more for Necromunda, a bit more for Blood Bowl. Like, there's nothing for Blood Bowl at all this fest.
I think that felt like a bit of a gap, the Blood Bowl.
It did, because they've only just redone Blood Bowl late last year, start of this year, sometime. So yeah, it would have been nice to see even just a new team.
Yeah.
You know, a redo of one of the old teams, like a new Vampire team or a new Amazons team or Norse or something like that would have been lovely. But you know, I know it'll come eventually, so I'm not going to throw my toys out of the pram and start bombarding the bloody stream with, "Where's this? Where's that?" Nah.
Yeah, it's not like that. Yeah.
Overall, it's been a really good week. I must say, there's been really nice stuff every single day. I've seen something that made me go, "That's pretty good."
Yeah.
Regardless of whether I collect it or not.
I think I would echo that sentiment entirely. Is that there wasn't much for me personally, but that doesn't mean I'm not excited to either see it released or see other players using it. Like I said, I'm despite how good the orc models look, I'm not gonna collect any of them, but I can't wait to have the opportunity to play against them on the tabletop. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to is seeing, you know, everything that they've released get out there and be used by the players that are passionate about those armies and those factions. And you know, our time will come when the bits and pieces that we're more interested in comes up, because as I said, Warhammer Fest is 6 days this time round. Normally it's 1-2 days in person, so it's 6 days this time around to release everything, but we often forget that obviously GW release things throughout the year anyway, so it's not like that's going to stop, and we're still going to be able to see those previews as we go. So I think it's an exciting time. Yeah,
that's not all we're getting until this time next year. You know, there's going to be a shed load more stuff that comes out.
I mean, they even mentioned, didn't they? There was 2 more things in May coming out, another couple of previews of whatever.
Yeah.
So
they said
that's just the standard monthly sort of previews that they do every single month. You know, that Warhammer Fest hasn't taken away from things that are going to come out. The Warhammer Fest is usually a little bit further ahead. So like the Age of Sigmar box, we're probably looking at, traditionally it's about a September release whenever they redo a game. Whereas stuff, the preview on the community page, that might be a couple of months away. It could be a year away. It just depends on when they do to get the production sorted and get it into the stores.
That's it. And like we know, AdMech is right round the corner now as well. So you know, not featured because it's that close. So as I said, plenty to get our teeth into.
And it gave us 6 opportunities to do podcasts, right?
This is true. Yeah, very, very true. And on that note, if you're following along, please like, share, subscribe, send to your friends, hit the bell icon if you're on YouTube, follow us on all the social channels. You can find us at Iron and Ceramite. And I think that's been the wrap up of Warhammer Fest 2021. It's been a good one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as I said, follow along on our pages wherever you like to follow along, whether that's on YouTube, socials, or on podcast. And stay tuned for more news as we cover it. Anyway, that's goodbye for me. Tommy.
See you later, guys.
Glenn.
Cheerio.
Thank you all.
As always, we would like to thank you for listening to our Iron and Ceramite podcast. If you liked us, then you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and any other good podcast services. Just remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.